Now then, let's take a moment, shall we, Trinidad and Tobago, to veer into exploring the environmental effects before getting back into this important Armstrong report. Environmentally, it is said that this highway segment will ruin the water system in the area. That means the hydrology of the area, because hydrology is water flow. If we understand this, we can understand that the water system in the area consists of a nexus of rivers, artificial ponds, and old paddy fields. Debe to Mondesi actually passes through parts of the Oropouche Lagoon, and this was documented in the IMA report several years ago. You see, the Oropouche Lagoon is an important part of our country and an important thing to our land. But we will talk on lagoons later. Debe to Mondesi runs through places like the Suchet Gopi Trace, Banwari Trace, San Francisco Road, and more. Now you can see on this map how a segment in the area would obstruct water flow from the large towns Faizabad, Siparia, Pinal, and Debe to the Oropouche swamp or lagoon. Extreme flooding is already taking place in the area, and things only look to get worse. Do we understand, Trinidad and Tobago? The Debe to Mondesi segment is planned to be constructed on a 9 to 10 foot high embankment full with aggregate. Since the area is low-lying and part of the lagoon basin, that's why they're trying to build it up on an embankment. This embankment will basically alter the water flow through the entire region, starting from this place named Barakpur. Now, a lot of surface runoff will occur. You can imagine that. Waters will build up, and those waters must go somewhere, including right into the street in front of your car. The change in hydraulic conditions will also impact the flora and fauna and overall environment. That means the trees, the bushes, the plants, the agriculture, everything. Because so much depends on the water system. Now it must be noted that the Armstrong report recommended that the government get a full hydrology study done. Why? So that they could determine the actual impacts that will happen should the segment be built. But guess what? No hydrology study has been done to date. Now, does it look like it will ever happen, Trinidad and Tobago? Mangroves stand to be destroyed, which will only cause further flooding, and it doesn't have to sound great. It is said that extreme flooding takes place in another area that was also bulldozed to make way for commercial buildings. Now that area is said to be Movie Town at Invaders Bay. Now why is it that so many in power seem to ignore this great threat of flooding on the people of our nation? It is said that when Movie Town was built, several other villages out and around nearby were put through much worse conditions of flooding than before, thanks to that quote-unquote progressive construction. Perhaps the flooding would be positive, right? To some kind of people out there. This might sound like a joke, but it's true. Some people would like to actually exploit the affected people by something called disaster capitalism. Once again, this might be thought of as extreme thinking, but we want to plant these seeds in Trinidad's mind so they know what exists out there, how corrupt the place is, and how to discern good from bad. These people out there exploit affected people by using all the physical and emotional turmoil of disasters to distract the people just long enough to get grossly unfair policies passed in the government. That's right. Now how can you deal with policies in the government when your house is flooding out? When you're having a natural disaster take up all of your time? This is known as disaster capitalism. Now there can definitely be people who stand to make money off of disasters. And these disasters do stand to take place if the highway segment is built. These disasters are therefore not so natural, are they? Because man did do something to make it happen. Quote unquote construction that will only cause destruction in the long run. But do we ever look so deep as to see it? Most of us do not. Perhaps the Iraq War was made up for just that reason. But nevertheless, it is clear that massive disaster in the form of brutal flooding is definitely taking place all over the world, especially in China, Singapore, and India. Is this progress? Now, to go even further down the rabbit hole, we can move from asking how manipulated we are as people to asking how manipulated the very disasters are. That's right. Could there be ways in which mankind affects the world in order to cause these disasters? Could there be weather warfare taking place on our planet? Again, conspiracy theory? Maybe. But is it possible with our technology? Are we willing to go and research and think before we judge? You see, it might sound far-fetched at first, but seeing as how mainstream media has lied about how tornadoes even form, it isn't that impossible to believe. That's mainstream media lying to you. Far-fetched? Maybe it is, I will admit. Controlling the weather is pretty far-fetched, but perhaps we are too stuffed full of mainstream media to even question their educated opinions. Will we continue to laugh or will we continue to cry? It all depends on what we are open-minded to delving into in the name of truth.